Hi, my name is Ryan, and my topic today for our AP Bio mini presentation is hearing. So first we have reception to response. So our general nerve pathway, we have initially sound that enters the ear, and this eventually becomes amplified by some of the bones there, and it affects the sensory nerves contained in the ear, specifically the cochlear nerve there. And once these nerves have been signaled, they take these signals to the central nervous system by the vestibulocochlear nerves. So just to kind of zoom in on our diagram over here, these yellow arrows on the left show the sound and then pressure waves entering the ear and the cochlea, which is the kind of spiral part of the inner ear you see there. And then from there, this labeled blue nerve part is the vestibulocochlear nerve, just taking it up to the brain, specifically the primary auditory cortex, where it is processed, and then different responses are triggered based on, obviously, what type of sound you're hearing. So the specific type of stimulus here is mechanoreceptor. So to just go a little bit more into detail about this, when the sound enters the ear, it is eventually kind of converted into pressure waves from these vibration waves of the sound or noise, and these pressure waves cause hair cells in fluid to begin to move, and based on how they move and how much they move, that will impact the neurotransmitters of the nerves involved in that. So that is how the initial mechanoreceptor works. So our next slide, what path does the stimulus travel through the ear to be received? So as I said before, these vibration waves from noise enter the ear and they become amplified. To just zoom in on our diagram over here, you can see some of these small bones in the middle labeled as step number 2 kind of amplify these vibrations from the outside, and after that they become pressure waves in the cochlea. So once they're kind of these pressure waves made by one of these bones, they affect the cochlea and the basilar membrane to kind of vibrate these hairs in the fluid and to change the number of neurotransmitters that are being transmitted across the synapse with the hair cells. And once that has kind of changed, depending on how it changes, it'll signal the cochlear neuron or the vestibular cochlear nerves to take that signal and bring it up to the primary auditory cortex. So if we kind of zoom in on this diagram over here, you can see that the yellow part is the neuron, and the purple part is the hair cell, and those parts all the way on the right are some of the kind of what we think of as like hair. And so depending on how those parts all the way on the right that are kind of sticking out of the hair cell are moved, depending on how they're affected, we will see different amounts of neurotransmitters transmitted across the synapse. So just to kind of generally sum up what the ear does in my own words, the ear takes the stimulus of noise or vibrations, to be a little more technically accurate, and then amplifies them and then changes them to be received by the brain as sounds. So one condition that I studied is subjective tinnitus, which is the most common cause of this condition. So it results from hearing loss that is potentially triggered by infections, drug, or trauma, specifically trauma to hair cells. So if we zoom in on this diagram over here, you can see the damaged hair inside the cochlea, a diagram of that there with kind of this damaged hair cell, and obviously look a look at kind of part of the inner ear there. But that is generally how most of this damage is caused to the ear, by these damaged hair cells. So this condition is the perception of sound when there's no sound is present. So the most common type you'll hear is ringing, but you might also hear roaring, hissing, buzzing, clicking, or other similar types of annoying sounds. So one of the parts of this is that it doesn't just occur overnight. It's kind of a gradual buildup, so it's not going to be something that you immediately recognize, but over time it'll get worse and more frustrating. Sorry. So to prevent this condition, it's generally suggested to avoid loud noises or try and minimize loud noises with protective equipment for your ears, and treat any underlying causes that might be affecting your health overall, as those can worsen this condition. So tinnitus affects about 10 to 15% of the population, but it only significantly impacts 1 to 2% of the entire population. So most people who have this are going to be kind of annoyed or frustrated, but not really have their day-to-day life hampered, whereas there's a small percentage who are going to find it unbearable and will be and should seek medical treatment for this condition. So these are some of my sources. These are all of my sources. Thank you for